Welcome to the Canadian Guild of Stage Directors and Choreographers podcast channel. My name is Jen Thiessen.
And I'm Kyla Musselman, and we'll be here to guide you through these episodes, which are made possible thanks to Canada Council for the Arts.
The Canadian Guild of Stage Directors and Choreographers, CGDC, is a national arts service organisation advocating for the rights, interests and protection of stage directors and choreographers and their assistants and associates.
These first episodes are snippets from our Assistant and Associate Program series, featuring industry leaders with insight about the theatre creation process, shared with you with the hopes of enriching our community.
In today's episode, we demystify the role of Executive Director with the legendary Claire Sakaki. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by the lovely Claire Sakaki. Claire has been the Executive Director of Bard on the Beach since 2013. She has led the financial, administrative and daily operations of BC's second largest theatre company, shaping its continued success before Bard. She was the producer at Soulpepper Theatre, playing a key role in its transformation from a small summer company into a multi-million-dollar award-winning organisation. That is the brilliance of Claire always. Claire's extensive career also includes leadership roles at Toronto Dance Theatre, Weston Playhouse in Vermont, and the COC Canadian Opera Company. She was also the founding producer of Theatrefront, a company dedicated to new works and international collaborations. Claire is a member of the board of directors for the Vancouver International Wine Festival, the Labour Relations Committee for PACT, and a founding board member for the Canadian Guild of Stage Directors and Choreographers. She is a recipient of the National John Hobday Award in Arts Management and a Harold Award for contributions to the Toronto theatre community. Claire's expertise spans artistic programming, arts administration, and cultural leadership. We are so thrilled to talk to this Wonder Woman. Thank you so much for being here today. Hello, Claire Sakaki.
Thanks so much for the lovely introduction. It is truly my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my gosh, our pleasure, and how lucky we are to have you. So Claire is here to talk to us today about being an executive director. So if you can start us off, Claire, what is an executive director and what are you responsible for and what do you oversee? Fill us in.
Well, the first thing I'll say is truly all organizations are different. So what I'm going to tell you is what my experience has been and what my experience and what the experience in some companies are. But every role, I think every administrative role and every artistic role in many ways are different in every company you go to. So this is just really what my experience has mostly been. So I am responsible for the day-to-day, the annual and the long-term planning of the business side of the organization. So the administrative for our organization, the education side, fundraising, marketing, financial management, human resources, all of the areas that one would consider business. In our organization, I also am very involved in the artistic side of things as well, which some organizations, there's a very clear line, and some organizations, it's a very fluid line. And at Bard, it's very fluid, which I love.
That's amazing. So, and we were going to ask you about this as well, like from your perspective, even though you're dealing with all this administrative side, how do you stay connected to the art? Can you talk us through that?
I think how and also why is really important. I think you have to stay connected to the art. I think it's really easy to get distracted because I think, again, in some organizations, the line is quite solid and there's okay, you're responsible for the budgets and the fundraising and selling tickets, and you're responsible for the art. And if we're not all here for the art, why are we all here? I think is the bottom line. And so I think it's really important that as executive director and as all administrators in the organization need to remember why we're here. And I think actually make an effort to make sure that our decisions and our directions and our planning and all the rest of it are actually have the foundation of the art and what's best for the artistic practice. We're not making widgets, we're not a bank. Those are wonderful things, but that's not what we do. And so I think, again, yes, the decisions and the work needs to serve an administrative purpose to be able to fulfill what we need to do on the administrative and business side of things, but it has to serve the art, it has to serve the artists. there's no great arts organization that is excellent at selling tickets with no art. There's no great arts organization that is wonderful fundraisers if there's nothing to fundraise for. And so the focus always has to come back there, and the foundation has to be there. So how is the tricky part, right? And so I think making sure that you make time for it. Again, I know we all get so distracted in so many areas in a good way of laundry lists really long about tasks and things we need to do, but making time to see it, to know it, to appreciate it, to read, to meet the artists, to understand what's happening in the rehearsal halls, what's happening in those production meetings. I wish I was around more often to actually see the art actually be created, but just to make sure that you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening is so important. Because again, how can you sell tickets, or how can you raise money for something that you don't know what's going on? And I think that's one of the hardest things is just that balance of making sure that you find the time to know what's happening. You find the time to know the people that are creating it, and to really understand what it is that we're all here working towards. So I think it is about popping into rehearsal. I think it is about making sure you know the scripts. It is about making sure you know the artists. It is about going into the theater when tech's happening to know actually what some of the struggles are. It's really important. So I think time is the biggest thing, is making time so that you stay connected.
As an artist, when somebody comes in from like the financial or from any of the administrative sides, which is so important, we couldn't do art without all of those other sides. It's what runs it, it's what funds it. But just to be seen and heard and understood from that side is so important as an artist. So thank you for doing what you do. No wonder you're so good at it. No wonder.
Well, no, but it's equally important that people also know, like, again, I hate siloed organizations. Like, if the box office doesn't know what they're selling, how can they sell a show if they don't know the show, if they can't talk about it passionately? I mean, one of the things that seemed like such a no-brainer, but what was one of the best things we did in the last few years was we bring the directors in to actually talk to the whole staff. I think for a few of us, we had the great luxury of talking to the creative team directly to get a sense of what the shows were and understand more. But it didn't then get a firsthand knowledge to the entire team. And so now our directors come in and talk to everybody in the box office, everybody in the fundraising department, everyone in the finance department. So that, again, it just brings it back to, what are we doing this for? And I tell you, it's been so positive of just everybody, even our grant writer, to be able to write more eloquently about what these shows are and why they're important, and who the artists are and why they're important, I think has made a real difference. So it's just making all those connections.
Oh, it's such a funny thing, because when you say it almost seems like, duh, of course, that makes so much sense. But it's like, it's not a regular practice. So no wonder you're so brilliant. This is Claire Sakaki we're talking about. Okay, so talk us through what does your day-to-day operations, what does it all look like?
My day-to-day, I would say 50% in meetings. I'm even more. I meet with all the people that report. So there's 6 people that report directly to me. They're all the different department directors, so fundraising, marketing, finance, education, et cetera. So I meet with them on a weekly basis. I meet with my senior team on a weekly basis. I'm very involved in fundraising. That if I had to pick kind of one part of the business that I'm more involved in than others, I would say fundraising is probably one of the major ones. And so I also meet with our whole fundraising team on a regular basis. I also spend a lot of time with our board of directors. So that's something that is a big part of my job, is I'm really the conduit from the organization to our governance structure. I'm not great at the balance, I'll be honest. Like, I think that's one of the things that I find the hardest is the day-to-day of meetings, and the demands on what's happening in the office often are the most the things that I feel the pressure on, because I'm in the office, people can knock on my door or just walk in, which is great. But it's finding that balance of finding the time to go down to the rehearsal hall, or finding the time to go out into the world and meet with people off site, or it's that internal external that I personally find really challenging, because The internal is I'm here. And so it's just way easier to spend the time and get everything done that I'm trying to get done here. It's removing myself to get out and spend more time externally, I think is tricky. But I do find time. And so some of my job is spent, also lobbying for the industry from a municipal place. So I work a lot with other arts organizations in Vancouver on different initiatives that we have as a sector. I definitely work provincially. So I just finished a pretty extensive campaign to try to get some funding back into the provincial budget around cultural events. It was potentially going to be cut entirely. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we did get something back into the budget, which was great. But that represented hundreds of artistic jobs, which I think we were able to save some, which was fantastic. And then I also do a fair bit of work kind of across the country, working with our different organizations that are national, again, for different initiatives that hope will be for the betterment of the sector from a national perspective. So really, again, it's that balance, right? Is internal meetings, external initiatives, trying to find a way to make it all work. But really, at the end of the day, like the biggest part of my job is to try to give people the tools to do their best work, because I am not the best fundraiser in this organization. I'm not the best marketer in this organization. I'm not the best finance brain. I am not the best education teaching artist. But what I can hopefully do is support the team and our people well enough that they can do what they do well. I can help translate between departments. I can help bring people together. I can help find commonalities between what we need to do. I can try to remove as many roadblocks as possible. And then I can just get out of the way. And that's kind of what I think a big part of being executive director is just helping this whole machine work in a way that everybody is working to their greatest strengths and trying to support everyone so that they can do their best work, which is going to be absolutely the best thing for this company, not me doing everything, because they are far better at it than I am.
How essential is this skill set to fundraise, to be able to self-fund as an artist? How essential is that for an up-and-coming director and choreographer?
It's essential, but I think what I think one of the biggest misunderstandings is what fundraising is. Because I think for a lot of people, it's scary. It's like, I'm just going to go cold call people and ask them for money. And sure, that's some of it, but that's by no means the vast majority of it. And I think what I try to work with the team, and what was the big breakthrough for me, frankly, and why I love fundraising now, is that what we get to do is take what we do, which is so special and so unique and so desirable by so many, and bring it to people and allow them to help actually bring these things to life. And the idea of demystifying fundraising is so important, because and that demystifying it and reminding us all that we are all a part of it, even though we don't necessarily think we are, that every person in the organization is responsible. I shouldn't say responsible for funding. It plays a part of fundraising. And that could just be doing what you do behind the scenes or on stage, or talking to a donor, or signing a thank you letter, or any of those things, because those are all really important things. And I know for a lot of us, it just feels like either A, really awkward, or B, like a little bit disingenuous or what have you, but it's not, because what it is connecting people that want to support the arts to the arts and the artists themselves. And so it is so important that people do it. But I don't want to say that and scare everybody to say, oh, I now need to be able to go write amazing grants or cold call a bank and get a corporate donation. Like that's not it at all. Sure, that's some of it, but it is about feeling really confident with who you are and what you're doing, and knowing that you can talk about that to people that really want to talk about it, with people that know it and love it and are living it. And so that is what fundraising is sharing that all. And so I think the more we can kind of make it less awkward, I think the better for everybody, including the people that are wanting to help us from a financial position. So it's really important.
I love it. You've got such an incredible macro perspective. And as artists, sometimes we're so zeroed into the specific show or the specific project, and just hearing you speak in these macro terms about essentially just connecting the art to an audience is really eye-opening and important. Okay, I want to zero back in to executive director. Can you talk us through your relationship with the artistic director and what that looks like?
I love my artistic director so much. So I'm in a very fortunate position. So my artistic director, his name is Christopher Gaze, and he's actually the founder. And there's not a lot of founders left in long-standing organizations. So we've been around for 36 years, and he founded this joint, and I'm super lucky with that. I think one of the main things is that an executive director and an artistic director have to be aligned. They have to be in an united front. Even if we're not. And Christopher and I don't always agree on everything, but we have an absolute understanding that if we disagree on something, we're going to talk about it. And in 11 years of working together, we have never had a problem that we couldn't resolve between the two of us. I mean, there is a mechanism which we can take things to the board if we so choose. We've never had to do that. And in that, and I say that like we have all these, weekly battles. We don't. We are aligned on 99% of the things in the world. And I think that is such an important relationship because you need to have each other's backs, you need to have trust in each other, you need to respect each other, but you also need to challenge each other. And I think that's one of the things that, especially here, we laugh about all the time, and our board laughs about all the time, is that more often than not, I'm the one fighting for more artists, more production values. I want more shows. And Christopher's the one that's like, no, when the budget is what it is, and we have to like reduce. And so we also switch hats a lot of the time, which again is a great relationship, in that we deeply understand kind of what our lane is, but we also deeply understand what the other person is trying to accomplish. And so I think having that balance has been really successful. Again, a lot of it is time. Take the time to spend time together. That is, again, I think a big challenge that we have. And again, I say it as because I have not mastered it at all. We don't spend enough time together, and we should spend more time together. And again, the to-do lists are long, and there's so much to do in both of our lives, whether it's a standing weekly meeting, whether it's a coffee on a Wednesday morning, whatever it is, like just investing that time together is really important. And so again, it's a relationship. You need to be aligned. You have to be a united front. And then making sure that you invest in that relationship like any relationship, but you want to invest in it with both the respect, but also the time it takes to really nurture one.
Oh, that's so great. And just last week, we heard about that same thing from the perspective of the artistic director, who essentially said the same thing.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, totally. Just how important that relationship is. Just because I'm so interested, like, what are the kind of nitty-gritty things that you guys have to negotiate about? I know you mentioned like fundraising and budgets and things like that. Can you give us a little bit more of the tea?
Like things we could negotiate between the two of us, you mean?
Yes, tell us everything. Is it like, when you're talking about a season and figuring that out, or is it just the nitty-gritty day to day? Like, what do those arguments look like? Arguments, respectful conversations that you're having together?
It's so far-reaching. So just recently, we've been really talking about programming and just shows and generally about mandates. And so again, what I also love, and at Bard, I'm kind of off topic. I'm sorry. I will get to your question. So we don't really have an artistic like director that makes all artistic decisions, and that's that. We have an artistic team, and so that includes Christopher and our associate artistic director, Dean Paul Gibson. Some of you may know him. If you don't, you need to know him. He's fabulous person. Our company manager is Susan Miyagashima. Meg Rowe, some of you may know, she's our artistic advisor. Myself, our production manager. So we get together every Monday morning and we spend 3 hours together talking about things artistic. And that's again really important because we're bringing together different decision makers within the organization that can really dive into these big heavy discussions on why we're doing certain things or what directions we're taking. And so that's one of the best places that we disagree. And what I love about that group and those people that I just mentioned is we can disagree, and we are super respectful with each other, and we care deeply about each other, but we argue. And it's wonderful because we all are so passionate about the things we believe in and why why we should do certain shows, why we should branch off into other areas, why we shouldn't. And we really challenge each other on some of the assumptions that we have. And then we get down to it. And sometimes those assumptions are just pure preference. I like this kind of show, not that kind of show. And so to really kick the tires on these different ideas and challenge each other on having to articulate why we believe certain things is just such a wonderful environment. And I always walk out of those meetings so invigorated, but also so delighted that we can have these really difficult discussions and still at the heart of it know that we can walk out as friends and as colleagues and people that really respect each other, even though we disagree. And so I think, yeah, as I say, we disagree about programming choices. We disagree about the latest have been around musicals. So for those of you that don't know our venue, we're outdoors, although we're covered and such, but we build a theater every single summer. And so we're very limited in certain technical and production aspects that we have. And things like musicals are really hard for us because we don't have a pit, we don't have sound separation, we don't have a lot of things. And so it's always this battle of what's important, what's okay to compromise. And so those are the type of things we fight about. So it's great. I say fight, argue, disagree, respectfully have a discussion, that sort of thing.
I love it so much. That was so fun. Thanks for sharing with us. We have just hearing you talk. Obviously, you've inspired our group. So one of our artists here has just asked, what are some other ways that artists can be less siloed and support the admin business side of things?
Such a great question. I'm going to answer this, but I don't want to give you the impression that I'm saying it's only on the artists, because I think it's on the administrators as well. I think we all need to make a better effort at finding out about each other, because, I think that's, again, one of the things we were just talking about this morning, actually, is how, this is going to be a dumb example, so forgive me, but like when you have a problem with your paycheck, how many of you know who to talk to in the finance department without and not feel like all kind of weird about like there's like some office up there and there's a bunch of people in it and I don't know what they do, and that's frustrating for you as people that have other things to do and you don't know where to go. It's frustrating for the marketing, like for something to happen marketing wise and you don't agree with it. Something was posted that wasn't cool to be posted, whatever. There was a direction that the marketing team went in and that you as artists aren't comfortable with. Again, who do you go to? Like, how do you know where to navigate all that? And I feel like one of the things that I think would be really helpful to break down those silos is for people to make an effort to figure out who each other are. And so to come up and say hi. I mean, it's hilarious. At Bard, our poor artists, we spend a half an hour on the first day of rehearsal just telling people over and over again to come upstairs and visit us. Please come upstairs and visit us. We have offices that just have snacks. Come up and have a snack. And again, it's this whole idea of just trying to break down the silos. Sure, there's a part of it that as a company, I want us to be more closely connected because we are stronger as a whole. But there's also a really practical reason of it makes your life easier. It makes our life easier. It would be great for there to be an ability that there's a problem, you know exactly who to talk to. There's a question that marketing has that they know, Peter, that you're totally great to talk to media and you have no problems about it. But Sarah, you're less keen and these are the types of things that you're more comfortable with. Like that's so helpful to know right on the so that they're not putting you in an awkward situation so you're having to do things you don't want to do, but that they can really utilize, if you speak another language, that they know that they're that they can really leverage what you want to give, but also be respectful about what your boundaries are. And so just having a more personal relationship, I think, then starts to break down those silos, starts to put people all in a more comfortable place. And frankly, I mean, I think a lot of administrators are really intimidated by the artists because you're down creating the art and you're brought in, you're specialists that are brought in to create something really special. And then you go away and there's a bit of like an aura around this. And so I know up here, I say up here because we're on two different floors, so forgive me, but I know it's so enjoyable for our admin team to get to know who the artists are, to know who's in the building. It means so much to them. And so that's what I say Peter, is not just on the artist, like I'm saying, it's on the admin too, is we're just trying to figure out a way to bridge that a little bit better so that everybody feels more comfortable, everybody can lean into what their strengths are. And then again, we can respect the boundaries that folks have as well. So it's all about relationships at the end of the day. I know I sound so idealistic, but I think it is.
I think that's so brilliant, and it's just all communication and understanding,
Mhm.
really. So, and I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with like what we're doing today, just to even just break down this executive director position because it's such a big title that it can seem intimidating. So, thank you for kind of breaking it down for us. Is there anything else you think we should know about this executive director position, just as we're demystifying it?
Just thinking about all the different stakeholders that we all have in our lives and in our work. And I think that that's something that is people sometimes, I wouldn't say challenge me on, but maybe aren't fully aware, is that absolutely, as I keep talking about, and I think is the most important thing, is that I have an obligation to the art and to the artists in the organization. I also have an obligation to the staff. I also have an obligation to our ticket holders and to our donors. I also have an obligation to my boss, which is the board of directors, which are 15 volunteers in the organization. And so it's tricky to sometimes navigate that, but it's also really great to remember, this is just a good life lesson for me, is we often have lots of different stakeholders that we need to work with, or that they have different priorities. And so some of the decisions that we make, some of the things that I do, some of the directions that are taken might not serve 100% one of those stakeholders, but they're definitely serving another one. And so it's that ongoing balance of how we try to serve enough in a way that is moving this organization in a direction that we want it to move, is not compromising the organization or anybody in it in a way that will negatively affect them, but also realizing that we can't do everything for everybody. And so sometimes the board questions some of the decisions I make. Sometimes the staff question some of the decisions I make. And that's all completely legitimate and part of my job. But it really is that trying to make the best decisions possible that will have the most beneficial result possible, that won't always make everybody happy in the end.
It's so funny. We are speaking to Mary Francis, who was our brilliant artistic director that spoke to us last week. She was just talking about always disappointing someone. That's just a part of her job that she had to kind of grapple with. She also mentioned that she views the audience as a stakeholder as well in the company, which just kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying. Out of interest, what is your relationship to PACT and what is your relationship to CAEA?
Yes, so we are a member of PACT, so the Professional Association of Canadian Theatres. It's great. It's great to be a part of an association that spans the country, or association that is everything from really small companies that are creation-based to the Stratford Festival and everything in between. So it's great. Like it's a very interesting member-based organization that, again, serves a really large range of stakeholders in terms of even just its membership. But it's a great organization, and I think as so many things, kind of like the CGDC, like I think it's as valuable as what people will put into it. So PACT is a member-driven organization. It has a very, very small staff that work very hard, but it relies very much on the individual members and people across the country to do work for it. So I am by no means one of the most active members, but I try to participate as much as I can. So I sit on the Labor Relations Committee, which oversees all of the different collective agreements that are part of like Equity and Playwrights Guild of Canada and the Associated Designers of Canada. I sit on we all sit on different committees, so regional and caucuses. So there's a group of us in BC that get together as one region, and then also what we call Category A, which are the largest theaters. So we divide both by region and also by kind of what you do or the size you are. And so it's great. Again, there's different ways that you can participate. There's different ways that you can give back. And I think it's a really important organization that represents the theater organizations across the country. Equity is also another great organization. We're really lucky out here in BC. We have the most amazing equity rep, the business rep. And she's actually really, I don't know if many of you know Jen, but like we very much feel that she's a part of the theater community out here. Like she's a really key member. It's interesting. Like if you ask a lot of theater companies, I think they would say that there's a bit of a contentious relationship with Canadian Actors Equity, that it's kind of like the theaters versus equity. And I don't believe that at all. I think equity is doing exactly what equity is supposed to be doing. They represent their members and they fight for their members. And I think that that's awesome. And that's exactly what they should be doing. I think people talk about having problems with things like the CTA, the Canadian Theatre Agreement. And I was a part of a group that was investigating kind of whether or not that really is a problem. And after many, many, many conversations, it was really clear that this is my personal view, but I don't think there's anything wrong with the Canadian Theatre Agreement. I think we're really bad communicators sometimes, and I think we have bad relationships sometimes, whether it be with equity or whether it be with artists or whatever it is. I think we're not always fantastic communicators, and so I don't think it's broken. I think we need to be better humans sometimes. But I think equity is a really important organization as well, and I think the relationship between equity and PACT is also a really important relationship in that both organizations are very clear about what they are. PACT is to represent and galvanize the theater community as best it can in terms of theaters, and equity is there to represent its members. Both very, very important parts of our sector.
So important. Okay, Claire, you must encounter so many new directors and choreographers and seasoned directors and choreographers. Can you tell us what is the main difference you come across someone between a veteran and someone brand new to a theater?
There's two really important characteristics, one each. I think veterans, people that have been around a long time, ask way more questions. They poke way more. They're more willing to show vulnerabilities, or they're way more willing to admit that they don't know things. And that's wonderful. I think newer people are less likely, for lots of very real reasons and reasonable reasons, I think they're less likely to show those gaps in knowledge or admit those gaps in knowledge. So less questions. But on the flip side, newer people are way more fearless, and they're way more willing to dream big, and they're way more willing to put something out there that I think for a lot of vets, they've been told no so many times, they just don't put it out there anymore. Whereas I think the newer artists are more willing to just throw it out there and throw the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And so I think we need a little bit of both. I think we need everybody to be perfectly fine to show vulnerabilities and ask as many questions as they can, and be very, I mean, I ask an enormous amount of questions. I'm on the phone constantly with my colleagues across the country, always asking questions, asking, how do you do this? I haven't encountered this before. What do you think about this? But I think we also edit ourselves too much. Like we have to stop editing ourselves. And because maybe something that was impossible for one company isn't going to be impossible for another, or somebody else can find a workaround to make this preposterous, fantastic idea happen. But I think, again, we're told no so often as just human beings. I think we're kind of used to then just editing ourselves and not bringing it up. So I think we need a little bit of both.
I love that so much. And then, of course, because we're an assistant and associate organization here, from your perspective, is there value or return for your investment from the business side in hiring new assistant and associate directors and choreographers?
Oh, totally there is. And we have so many successful examples of that. Even just our company here on the West Coast of Canada, we have some of our programs are more evolved, more defined than others. And so I realize that it's not consistent across all disciplines, but definitely from designers, for example. So we've had a longer history of assistant designers or apprentice designers here, and so I would say the majority of our designers that are now designing all of our main stage shows started as apprentices and assistants, and so it's been such a amazing opportunity to get a new voice, a new perspective in, but then also really have somebody understand the culture of an organization and the company and to know more about it. And that's such a beneficial thing. And so it was such a no-brainer for us to then just say, great, can you just do the show now? And so I think that's been really wonderful, is just seeing that assistant directors, We've had mostly our assistant director program has been apprentices, so more of an observation auditing process than actually assisting or associate directors. Teresa Richards was an apprentice here a number of years ago, and very short, I think 2 years after she was apprentice, directed our main stage show and then directed a show the year later on the bigger stage. We've had lots of very successful examples of people that have gone through that program and have very quickly just worked as full directors, designers, choreographers for us. We don't have a lot of choreographers. We don't do a lot of musicals, and so I'm hoping we do more. So we haven't had a big experience, a long history with that, but I hope we do more.
I love it so much. Thank you for fostering the entire ecosystem. It's so wonderful. Do you have any advice for our cohort here, up and coming directors and choreographers from your perspective?
I do. Know your value. Know your value. I'm sure you're hearing that from tons of people. I hope you're hearing that from tons of people. It's quite funny. I coach a lot of artists on how to negotiate because everyone needs to know how to negotiate because this is a business. This is a business, and I keep talking idealistically about relationships and all of us being together, and it's true. But at the end of the day, it's still a business. And my biggest sadness is always when artists don't know their value and don't feel that they have the agency to negotiate, because you do. And so I always laugh when I'm then negotiating with an artist and they're really tough. I'm like, you're so tough. And they say, yeah, you told me to be that. And it's like, oh yeah, right. Okay, fine. True. One of the things that I saw recently, I don't know if any of you saw it, was Meg Rowe and Rebecca Northern and Julie Tomeno did a equity chat. Did anybody see this? Scott Bellis moderated it. It's really fantastic. And it's all about kind of how, as artists, you can negotiate with companies and have agency with companies. And it's so amazing. And everything they said in this, I think it's like almost an hour and a half or longer chat, I agree with entirely. And it is about knowing your value. It is about calling people. It is about cold calling people. It is about getting to know companies that you want to work for. I guarantee you people have time. They want to hear from you. I have never said no to anybody that has called me and said, can we have a coffee and talk about the theater or talk about working at Bard or talk about whatever. But honestly, people have time and more times than not, they're going to say yes. And get to know companies, let them know who you are, let them know what makes you tick and what you're interested in. And truly, I think reaching out, finding out where their pain points are. It's not that I'm annoyed when people come and talk to me about big musicals, but it's really helpful when people come and talk about, I really want to do this musical, and here's the ways that I think your theater company can do it, knowing that you have these challenges. So doing a little bit of research, figuring out, and I mean, I don't mean spending hours and hours. I just ask questions, look at what the type of stuff they do, solve the problems before they even can tell you their problems. Again, people want information. People want to learn about new artists. People want to learn about new projects. And so get in front of people and come and visit us. Find out who makes artistic decisions in organizations and send them an email and say, hey, I'm in town. Do you have time for a coffee? That would be my advice, is get in front of people. People want to meet you.
I love it. And I love it that it was all coming from a solution-based perspective as well, which is so Claire Sakaki, so macro, looking at everything in the larger perspective. It's so good. Do you have any final thoughts to leave with our group at all here today?
I guess kind of just to further this whole kind of my headline statement of know your value. I'm not assuming you are, but if you are at all intimidated by institutions, which I get why you would be, individual artists coming into an organization that is an institution, that can be a frightening thing. But again, the institutions only exist to create the work that you're creating. And so remember that. And if you're having a problem, speak up. If something's not working, let someone know. I'm choosing my words carefully here, because what I don't want to make it sound like it's on you and only on you. But we are all in this together, and you have as much agency as anyone else, as much as I do, as much as Christopher does, what have you. It only works when we are. I sound like an after school special. Tell me to shut up.
No, we love it.
You're hearing myself talk, and I'm like, just stop it. But okay, I'm going to finish the sentence. It only works if we are actually all working together. And so we want to hear what's working. of course we want to hear it's working. We also want to hear what's not working. We want to hear when it's not working, not after the fact too, because, you know, I get so saddened when I hear about a rehearsal process that did not go well. And it's not to say that I personally or whomever could have solved it, but at least we could have tried. And I think one of the challenges is that as individual artists, folks feel like they don't have agency because they're in an institution. The institution is just made up of people as well. And so find the folks that you feel comfortable with in terms of reaching out to, chat with folks, get to know the company so that you know, you're invested as much as they're invested in. So I don't know. And it makes sense. My after school special is going to come to a close now. So.
I love it. I love it. You're saying, yes, don't be intimidated by the institutions. I love it so much. And of course, just like you said, they are just people who are probably just trying to do their best.
Honestly are as intimidated though by you all for what you bring. So don't forget that part.
I love it so much. So a couple of the things that Claire has said today, she reminded us to stay connected to the art. If we're not here for the art, what are we doing? She said, make time for the art and center it around that. Make time for your artistic director as an executive director. Foster that relationship so you are a united front. She said, removing yourself from internal meetings to serve the industry externally is so important. Claire also helped demystify fundraising for us and shared that fundraising is just connecting the art to the audience. I love it so much. Claire observed that seasoned directors and choreographers perhaps ask more questions, so don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Claire also encouraged us all to dream big as emerging artists and in general reminded us to stop editing ourselves. Don't be intimidated by institutions and know your value. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the brilliant Claire Sakaki. Thank you so much, Claire.
This podcast was made possible by Canada Council for the Arts and brought to you by the Canadian Guild of Stage Directors and Choreographers. CGDC advocates for the rights, interests, and protection of professional stage directors, choreographers, and their assistants and associates.
To learn more, give them a follow on Insta at official CGDC or check out their website, cgdcweb.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a review, a like, or a follow. And if you have any questions or queries about today's episode, please shoot us an email over at canadianguilddc@gmail.com. Thanks for helping us build better pathways and being a part of our community.